let's touch again on Hawthorn. We spoke about them earlier, Jono, and, well, this is very much an interesting time for the Hawthorn Football Club.
Yeah, you can see there with Eamon Meek and Stevens now coming in, losing the experience of Gunston Mitchell and O'Meara. But you spoke a little bit earlier, Kingy, around the full support of the board. In a couple of years' time, we do say, because that's the true test in terms of the belief in what Sam Mitchell is doing with the experience leaving the club and now the build from the younger ones underneath. And look, you know, listening to Sam in the off-season through a few events and bits and pieces, I think his leadership style is right on the money. It really is, in terms of the way that he will plan this club perfectly over the next couple of years. He'll set them up for success, but it comes down to whether his style will get them there. And then if it doesn't, like you said earlier, whether then the board remain patient. Might be interesting viewing sitting next to Jason Dunstall and Dermot Brereton on Fox Footy next year. We're going to head back to Marvel, where Chris Davies from the Port Adelaide Football Club has been kind enough to give us some of his time on Fox Footy. Chris, thank you so much for talking to us. Obviously, Jason Horne-Francis and landing him was the number one item on your agenda during this pre-season trade period. Can you talk us through how the whole thing came to be and how far out it looked like happening?
Yeah, look, I mean, realistically, it was the week leading into the trade period where, you know, we missed out on Josh Dunkley, as has been, you know, well described. Jason's manager came to the club and said it was an opportunity that we should explore both Adelaide clubs, and obviously with Fabian, his father, having a relationship with us, we probably always had the front running, but we're really pleased to be able to get that done.
We just had Brady Rawlings on. He said now, having moved on from Jason Horne-Francis, we want to get in top-end characters. So that was a bit of a slap, and that's fair enough. Hey, Seti, what are you putting around Jason Horne-Francis to make sure you maximise your 6-year investment?
Yeah, look, I mean, everyone has a reason to do trades at this point in time and justifies these things at the end, don't they? So, look, from our perspective, you know, Jason's character wasn't questioned before the draft year. We think we've got some really good players who he can help, you know, around him, but also learn off of, you know, Travis Boak, Ollie Wines, these type of guys who I'm sure will show Jason the way that he needs to act in order to be, you know, a top quality AFL footballer.
Chris, we know that a happy player can be settled, but we also know that it takes a lot more than that to be successful. What do you expect from Jason from that first time he steps onto the park for a training session, the start of pre-season? What sort of feedback do you want to hear from the coaches and his teammates around him?
Oh, that he's open to learning, that he's not, you know, a closed package in terms of, you know, what he can get better at. And that's not just with respect to Jason. That's with regard to any young player who comes into the club. You know, we often forget that these guys are, you know, 18, 19 when they come in. They've been, you know, semi-professional footballers beforehand. Some people have got work to do, and I'd like to see anyone who thought that they were the finished package at 19. I certainly wasn't in my sporting career, so I'm sure that we would all look back and go, you know what, we could have done some things differently.
You had 33 on the table for Asava Ratugolea for, I think, a number of days, and you thought maybe that Geelong might need it for Ollie Henry. In the end, they went round the back. They got him another way. What do you do now? Have you got enough defensive cover, and did you offer up anything extra, not that you had too much, apart from 33 for Ratugolea?
Look, as you say, Rafi, we didn't have too much. So, look, you know, 33 was on the table for a period of time. You know, we know Asava is disappointed, but ultimately that's Geelong's prerogative. You know, he's a contracted player. I think, our defence hasn't necessarily been our issue over time. We've been able to defend the ground well, but adding a midfielder and also, a half forward in Junior Rioli was what we went into the trade period wanting to achieve, and there's no doubt that, you know, we need to be better in that area of the ground, and with those two guys coming in, we think we can be.
Chris, where do you see this list now? Because outside looking in, you've done an unbelievable job in the off-season, not just this year, the last few seasons. Is this the best list that you've handed Ken Hinkley at this stage of the season over the last 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, look, I think it's a list with a great deal of potential. As you say, David, we've drafted in 7 first-round picks in the last 4 drafts. You know, it's third in the competition for the number of young players that we've brought in. But at Port Adelaide, you know, you've got a responsibility to be, you know, challenging every year, and that's our want. Clearly we weren't anywhere near that last year, but, you know, we think with a little bit of luck, Fantasia being injured all of last year wasn't helpful. Dixon missing the first 10 weeks wasn't helpful. We don't think it's going to take too much for us to become a contender again, and that's absolutely going to be our want and goal for 2023.
Well, Chris, it certainly looks like a job well done. Enjoy a little break now before the national draft on November 28th, and thanks for having a chat to us tonight on Fox Footy.
No worries. Thank you.
So, Chris, hands to Ken, as you said, a pretty primed list. It's all chips in.
Yeah, it is, but I think it's all chips in for all clubs, Ralphie, but they've done an unbelievable job in the off-season of the last 4 years. They really have. When you look at, they've done Finlayson, Aliir, Fantasia, the Purge Wingard and get Burton and effectively Rosie. Mm-hmm. This year's a boom, Horn Francis and obviously Rioli. I'm surprised they missed out on Radagalier at the end because it just would have been the one wild card for their back line. Potentially could play a little bit of ruck as well.
So if you are Chris Davies and you are, of course, their president and David Koch, are you saying to Ken Hinkley, just come out before the season starts and say, if I play finals, I get a contract extension. Take all the heat out of it, or are you just saying it was because that's what the score is going to be. There's going to be a lot of discussion about that, especially in the Adelaide Advertiser. Or you're just hoping that you start the season 8-2, and that just goes away really quickly as an uncontracted coach.
It's it has to work this year. And look, I think it will with the list they've got, honestly. But if it doesn't, where do they go to? Because they've got nothing in their next year's draft. You know what I mean at the moment. So they've put it all on the table right now. So this is it.
I mean, I don't know why you'd start in a negative fashion with this list. Charging forward, you walk into your football. Ken would say to the group, we wanted Jason Horne-Francis, here he is. We wanted a specialist coming small forward. We've just lost Robbie Gray. Guess what? Bang, we've delivered one straight away. There's no reason why they shouldn't start the year like they finished it, full steam ahead. The reality is they were 2-9 versus top 8 teams last year. They weren't good enough against the best. So how do you fix that? You get some improved talent. There are no excuses in football. You either win or you shut up. And Ken's got to put up now and charge towards another grand final opportunity, which are tough to get.
And if I'm Ken Hinkley, I want to coach that team for a very long time. Mitch Georgiadis, unbelievable. Amazing from Connor Rozee. Marshall, second half of the year, off the chart. Zach Butters, we know his injury issues. He'll bounce back. Xavier Dersma probably had a down year. Some injuries was dropped as well. But that's 6 or 7 players with Horne-Francis there. The core of that team is pretty special.
And they're going to be an exciting team to watch. Ken Hinkley always seems to coach teams that are really entertaining.
Junior Rioli, we didn't even mention Junior Rioli, who had 28 goals in his first year. He's capable of 40 goals next year.